it seems, other than some voices coming to support the fight here in Romania, the fight for democracy, or at least bring awareness to it, nothing's really improved. That's what's concerning. Is that probably the most notable thing is Thierry Breton said very openly, what was done in Romania, that's his words, what was done in Romania may be needed in Germany, the biggest democracy, biggest economy in the EU.
Big events didn't happen, but for example, Vance's speech yesterday shook the system here. We are like a colony. If they hear the Americans or Brussels are waving in one hand, they are saying, okay, masters, we will obey. They are very weak people.
Can you tell me more about the impact that J.D. Vance's speech had in Europe?
Yeah.
Can you tell me more? What impact did it have?
Yeah. I am sure it alerted the EU bureaucracy, who was also very scared about our conference, about Make Europe Great Again in Brussels. They were whispering on the halls. They were very scared. They didn't want us there.
The amount of support you guys have after what happened in December is just skyrocketed.
It's incredible. We are the second party, but if all things would have been fair, we would have won the elections, the parliamentary elections. Yeah, a majority of the Romanians woke up, and the start was given by the Romanians abroad, because we have lots of Romanians working in Great Britain, in Italy, in Spain, in Germany. They support us quite a lot. We were on the first place in all of these countries with the vote of the Romanians abroad. So they found home, and they told to their families, go vote for Georgescu, go vote for in order for me to come back home. We have a big problem, even if theoretically we are in the European Union, theoretically we are a civilized country. We have problems with the corruption and with extreme poverty. This led the Romanian nation to have 6 million people working abroad, separating mother from child, separating families, and this caused lots of disasters, lots of dramas, lots of people with mental problems, because having to escape poverty. We have 1/3 of the Romanian people with poverty risk. So
One in 3 people, that's a crazy number.
Yes, so this is not normal for a country which is rich. We have the Black Sea and the Carpathian Mountains. We have the Delta of the Danube. We have all types of zones of regions, and we have oil. We have natural gas, we have gold, we have salt, we have anything we need.
So one thing I told when I landed in the airport, I told my girlfriend, I'm like, you know what's weird about Romania? It's a big country, almost 20 million people, great location. The talent here is incredible, because I have a team here, so I know how talented Romanians are. Similar reminds me of Ukrainians as well before the war, a lot of talent there. But for some reason, just the economy isn't doing well. Like it's not a rich country. It should be like Dubai, like well built. And I'm like, it's crazy how, I was on the phone, I was just landed from the airport, I'm like, it's crazy how a flawed system or a corrupt system could impact the country as a whole. And we're seeing that here in Romania.
We have the corruption here at home, which caused a rich country to be on the last place on all indicators of wealth in the European Union. We share this position with the Bulgarians. They show us we are growing at some indicators, for example, GDP. But it's not our wealth. It's the wealth of the multinational companies.
The inequality here is very, very high.
Rich are becoming richer, the poor are becoming
poorer, and the middle class is
poorer.
just getting...
The multinational companies are exporting all the profits. They are not paying taxes here. So you can imagine people are frustrated. I'm 38 years old. We waited all our lives to be part of the free world, to leave behind the... Hai încoace să faci o poză. Hai! Leave behind the communist regime.
For a politician.
Yeah.
It's not common to see.
Mulțumesc.
Mulțumesc.
Do you speak English?
A little bit.
Little bit. Why are you taking photo? Why do you like George?
Nu vezi că așa bine.
De ce îți place de mine?
Vă admir că sunteți un om care se impune, știe legile.
That I impose, I know the laws, I have very good skills. Thank you.
Mult succes.
We were poor, we were living in a dictatorship in the Soviet regime, and my parents, my grandparents, longed for liberty, for democracy. We were very enthusiastic about entering NATO, about entering the European Union, about being the same with our American friends. We were watching Cartoon Network, we were watching the Hollywood movies, we were watching the free world, and all of a sudden the free world was occupied by the same sort of commissars that led us in the Soviet period, and doing the same stuff, imposing censorship, getting involved in cultural matters. They are saying one thing, for example, unity under diversity, and they are doing quite the opposite, because if we are a conservative people and Christian Orthodox people, we are not allowed to respect our grandfathers, our identity. We must recognize what they want us to recognize. We must say that men can give birth to a child, and so on. So
you're having those. So essentially, having those values imposed by the EU, by Brussels, onto Romania. That's something that I've seen, and that you're fighting with. Make Europe great again, MEGA, as well.
Yeah, we created this idea here in the Romanian Parliament, which is actually the second largest building in the world, administrative building after the Pentagon.
Yeah.
We had the first edition of Make Europe Great Again. Now, this year we organized it in the European Parliament.
You took it all the way to their home.
Yes, actually, it's kind of funny because I was talking with one MEP when I wasn't a politician, when I was advocating for the peaceful reunion of Romania with the Republic of Moldova. And he said, it's totally crazy to come here with these nationalist ideas, patriotic ideas, in the heart of Europe. So the Europe doesn't want us because we are patriots, because we love our country. This is crazy. We want to take over the institutions in Brussels. We want to advocate for a Europe of nations, for a Europe where everybody is equal, like they said.
They sound like very common sense values for anyone to have.
I'm the vice president of ECR party. This is what my president stands for. My president is the former Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki.
I was with him. I think I was speaking to him 2 days ago.
Yes. He took over the presidency from Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy.
Oh yeah, it was very recent. He took it over a few weeks ago, correct?
Yes. When I was also appointed as
great guy, by the way,
vice president, he really is. And this is what Mateusz Morawiecki and ECR standing for. Common sense. This is all that we want. We are friends with the Polish people, for example. We passed through the same problems in our history. We are not Russian supporters. Actually, us, the Romanians and the Polish people, Romanians suffered a lot due to Russian occupation.
Yeah.
Romania and Poland have the same past. We suffered a lot because of Russia, either if it was the Tsar Empire or the Soviet Union or current.
So just for the record, just for everyone that reads the mainstream news here in Romania, you are not completely pro-Russia. You have not received any funding from Russia.
Totally
you don't speak Russian.
I haven't been to Russia.
You've never been to Russia.
But in our electoral campaign, I was accused of being a Russian spy.
A spy?
A spy. And that I met with Russian spies in Ukraine. And this is why I have a travel ban. I cannot enter Ukraine. So I was constantly saying, I have a ban to enter the Republic of Moldova and Ukraine. not because I was a Russian spy or that I met with Russian spies, but because I was defending the identity of the Romanians living there, to have their own schools, to have their own churches, to have a common future. So in the electoral campaign, all our enemies insisted the prime minister should make public the papers and the information he has from the Ukrainian side about my travel ban. So the prime minister was forced to show them publicly. And the paper from Denis Shmyhal from the Ukrainian prime minister said, I was defending the Romanian schools, I was defending the Romanian churches, and I was advocating for stronger relations between Romanians, which are normal
I'll
things.
be honest, Russian spy sounds a lot cooler of a story.
Yeah, I had back then 22 years old. I was 22.
22-year-old spy.
And yeah, I was like Agent 007, James Bond. Crazy accusations, but they own part of the mainstream media, and they involved the mainstream media into this coup d'etat that is happening against free elections in Romania. So now we are doing what is the common sense thing to do, to protect democracy, to protect free elections, to fight the coup d'etat, to get Kalin as president. He has good things and bad things, but I must defend Kalin because he is the person voted by the Romanian people.
Exactly. Exactly. Whether you like him or not, whether you like Trump or not, you have to respect the democratic system. Without that system, without respecting that system, you're breaking the foundation of what makes a democracy.
Here in Romania, we will win because here in Romania, we have weak leaders in the government and at the president's office. Because here in Romania, we will do what orders we have from Washington or from Brussels, because they are used to being slaves. They are used to being a colony. So the question right now, as a young Romanian leader that fights for its people, is who will take over this part of the world. Because clearly, if the European bureaucrats who don't know the MAGA language, who don't know the phone of Marco Rubio, for example, and send him emails, the European bureaucrats who were shocked by Vance's
Yes, I'm going to read out
speech.
to a quote. His speech was incredible. I'll read out to
They were shocked. They were shocked by the mega event in Brussels, and they will try to force an aggressive attitude towards the Trump administration.
But they're causing their own demise. Like I was saying this to Callan yesterday. What they did to Trump played a big role in getting Trump elected, because everyone just saw lawfare in action. And what we're seeing here in Romania, and seeing you popular with those kids earlier, is that what they're doing to you and Callan is blatantly saying that democracy is not functioning, and blatantly putting you there as the guys fighting for democracy, that even people that might not like your policies would eventually have to support you.
Yes.
So that's going to eventually backfire on them. And for me, it's just confusing how they don't see that. How they don't see they're actually, destroying their own support base.
I'm just about the age. I'm going towards a statute of statesman. I read a book about famous Polish general, General Piłsudski, from revolutionary to statesman. And I tried in my youth times, in my civic activist times, to see models of peaceful democratic changes of system. Because not so long ago, 45 years ago, we had a revolution, a bloody revolution here in Bucharest in 1989. And I saw Gandhi and his model of walking. He was just walking, making peaceful marches, and they tried to stop him. And when they saw they couldn't stop him, they joined him. And this, if we are persistent enough, will happen in Europe, because it's Europe's only chance for a future. If we are caught in a war against America, and this is what Ursula von der Leyen is tactic, choice to be aggressive opposed to the Trump administration. And our chance right now in Romania and at European level is to peacefully march on. And we will succeed because the tide, the wave is on our back, and we will manage not for ourselves as persons, but for our nations and for the idea of a united Europe.
And I think the more they do to target you and to target Callan, the more your support will grow.
I saw this during COVID-19 restrictions. We were the ones organizing huge protests. We made a huge protest around this building, and it wasn't very easy to do because it's the largest building in Europe. And we surrounded the building with Romanians, and the members of the parliament couldn't go inside. And they stopped some of the restrictions. They didn't impose the mandatory green certificate at the workplace.
So you're saying peaceful protests work and have worked already in Romania?
Yes, and we did it. And the only thing that is keeping this globalist puppet government is orders from Brussels.
Yeah.
But many people already are also listening to orders from Washington. We consider ourselves as equal partners with all the nations, but of course we are connected and we are a pro-transatlantic party, us in Romania and at ECR level.
That doesn't sound like a Russian spy speaking, to be honest.
Our grandmothers were raped by Soviet soldiers. So I could never betray my country, and I could never be in favor of preferential relations with the Russian Federation. But in the future, we will have to have dialogue with everybody.
100%. 100%.
This is...
Anyone that refuses dialogue, and I'll read out a quote here from J.D. Vance, because I want to go back to his speech and what impact it had. He said people in Europe, in Brussels, are scared from your movement, the MAGA movement, and what J.D. Vance and Trump are doing. So he says people, and it's such a perfect statement to make, people dismissing voters' concerns, shutting down their media, protects nothing. It is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. Something applies perfectly here in Romania. And then he says, for years we have been told everything we fund and support in the name of our shared democratic values, everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is built as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask ourselves if we are holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. That came directly from J.D. Vance, and he says canceling elections, obviously referring to what happened here in Romania. So it shows that people in the US are paying attention to what I call the sandbox, or the experiment that's happening in Romania that Thierry said they can replicate in Germany. So my question to you is, what happens to the EU if they succeed in Romania? What happens in Germany? What happens to other European countries?
It was perfectly described by George Orwell in his book in 1984. It's called The Book. I recommend to everybody to read this book. He also wrote a very good manual for politicians around the world, The Animal Farm, which is a case study. So in 1984, he described how geopolitical blocs will function. If they will succeed in Romania, they will impose dictatorship all around EU countries. They control many parts of the governments in the majority of the countries. Like, for example, in Germany, even if AfD will win, they will create a coalition bloc out of Socialist and CDU. Taking also the Greens, doesn't matter. It's important to keep the cordon sanitaire against AfD. So this is not democratic at all, but this is what they will try to impose. I know them. We are in the same continent with them. I know how they are working through the deep state. Soros might have lost in the States, but he will try to regain power in Europe and to create an enemy out of the European Union for the Trump administration and for the United States. Famous journalist from Romania, globalist journalist, founded out of USAID funds, Dan Tăpălagă, said yesterday that now America is becoming an enemy for Europe. And then he got scared, he received many phones, and he changed the title into America is becoming a problematic partner for the EU.
So hold on, let's go to that title. So what you're saying is that the journalist, which was funded by USAID,
Yes.
so journalists are trying to frame the US as an enemy to Europe?
Yes, these are the next steps. I see them clearly. I'm trying through the mega movement to oppose them. This is why I'm going next week also at CPAC as a speaker to wake up important key figures in Washington and to keep the current partnership between EU and the Trump administration. If not, we will lose big time out of the war between the European Union and the United States.
That's a scary thing to imagine.
I'm the most
Breakdown of two.
moderate out of all sovereignist groups. And from my position as Vice President of ECR, I'm telling you that we will have a Cold War between the United States and the European Union if things don't change at national and European governments.
Okay, so there's a few points I want to cover. First, you talked about George Soros, which is constantly mentioned in the Open Society Foundation. How much influence does he have in Europe?
Quite a lot. He had a good strategy to finance in the 90s when we were very poor, not only us Romanians, Polish people, Hungarians, to finance the intellectuals, the bright kids that were going to the universities, to have scholarships for them. And he influenced quite a lot of our intellectuals, our mainstream journalists, politicians, analysts. He did a lot of harm through the Central European University that resided in Budapest. Now is kicked out of Budapest and is in Vienna currently. And he first took the cultural sector, then went to the judicial system, and now Soros guys control quite important parts of the judicial system in Romania, in Bulgaria, and in other countries.
Do you think that includes the constitutional judges that annulled the elections? Do you think any of them are influenced by Soros?
Because the constitutional judges that annulled the elections are not part of the judicial system and are not real judges. They are politicians. They are socialist, liberals, people named by Iohannis. So
Iohannis chose the judges that essentially made the decision to annul the elections?
Yeah, and they are former members of the parliament in Romania.
So they're politicians?
Yeah, they are not judges. But the prosecutor, in my case, because before the European parliamentary elections, we were all arrested 3 days before the date of the elections, is the same as in the case of Tate brothers, and is listening to orders that come directly from some embassies and from some Soros foundations, not from his hierarchic superior, for the general prosecutor of Romania. This is the situation in Romania, and it's only a mirror of what's happening in Poland, what's happening in Bulgaria, and in all other countries except Hungary, because Viktor Orban expelled the Soros
Georgescu said
network.
he'll be expelling the Soros network as well on day one of his presidency. He said that yesterday.
Hopefully, in Romania, the president doesn't have that much power, but if we will have
You'll be prime minister
repeated
in that,
elections,
in that cabinet as well, no?
I will aim for an important role in the Romanian state to help my people.
So I think you've kind of made a really good argument on why it's really important for not only Europe, but for the democratic world to watch what's happening here in Romania, to make sure that the fight is won, the fight for democracy is won. I want to go back to Brussels and how much influence they have, because the EU system seems to be just another way to centralize power in Brussels and allow Brussels to dictate what laws could be implemented in all these EU countries. I saw that in the interview I did with the former Prime Minister, your friend Mateos, a couple of days ago.
My leader, yes.
Your leader,
Mateos. The president of ECR, yes.
And what they did to him, he's a very smart man, such an intellectual, such a pleasure to speak to him. But the way they've choked off funding to him whenever he did something they did not like makes one question even the validity of the EU, which I've been a very big fan of the European Union and what it stands for until I saw how it's being abused. Can you break down how the EU influences countries like Romania and how that could change? Is it just a complete breakdown of the EU? Is it through movements like Mega? How can you change what Brussels is doing to other countries?
Through democracy, through peaceful measures. They want to change the EU treaties because they don't have enough power right now.
So they want to give themselves even more power?
Yes. They saw that they tried through referendums to change the treaties. They saw they are losing elections. They tried to change it in Ireland. They lost the referendum. We had Brexit. They lost. So now they are trying to escape popular vote, and they are trying to, through unseen mechanism, undemocratic mechanism at European level, to change the treaties, to take the sovereignty out of the hands of the nations and centralize the power in Brussels. We know this. I am a young politician. I entered politics only in 2019, and in 2020 we entered the Romanian parliament. But I worked a lot, and I understand the mechanism that are used by some totalitarian bureaucrats who are trying to take over the power. To come back to your question, you can do the right things through democracy. We had elections. We were one step away on having the majority in the European Parliament. The key is the unity of the sovereignist bloc, which is not happening right now. In the sovereignist bloc, we are divided. So as Vice President of ECR, I will support this idea of unity, and I will support, like Elon Musk is doing, the popular wave. And this popular wave will win government after government out of the 27 countries. And in the next 3-4 years, we will have the majority in the European Council, and we will have the majority, and we will take the European Commission. This is my aim, and until then, it won't be easy. I'm seeing ahead, and I predict years of battles, but battles that will be won because Hitler lost, because Stalin lost, because the European new Soviet Union will break apart and will leave behind the original project, which was designed by Adenauer and de Gaulle, the fathers of the European project, which intended to keep peace and to generate prosperity for Europeans. And we kept peace, but we got
did not generate prosperity.
Yes, and then the bureaucrats suddenly started getting involved in cultural issues, how we should educate our children, how the state can take your children away from the family, and so on. So our battle is a civilization battle, which I am sure that with the help of our American friends and with our mega network everywhere, we will win.
You keep talking about fighting this through democracy, but if they're breaking down the fundamentals of democracy, like cancelling an election, how can you fight such a fight if there's no fair battlefield? How can you fight through democratic means when you can't even run an election, a fair election?
How can you escape a dictatorship? I talked with many of the people that were on the streets in 1989 revolution in Bucharest. I talked with my father, with my mother. I talked with their generation. And it was like the system was eternal. It was like the Communist Party had all the power in the world, and they were arresting everybody who listened to the Voice of America, for example. And it seems like nobody had a chance, but in the end, every empire will die, every dictator will have a bloody end. I'm not wanting, because many people died in the Romanian Revolution. I don't want a bloody solution. I want a peaceful solution like in Prague, like in the Velvet Revolution. I don't want to settle scores that come from the past. I am a young guy who is looking towards the future.
Do you think there's any way that this system, the European influence, the George Soros influence, deep state system could survive a Trump presidency, could survive a speech by J.D. Vance, could survive Elon being vocal about it on his platform?
Of course. I told you. You don't know these guys. I know them. It's like the same thing when I'm talking about communism in France or in Italy or in Spain. They haven't lived through communism. They haven't lived through a dictatorship. This is exactly what I'm telling you right now. We know these guys. We know these EU bureaucrats. The fight won't be solved by a speech held by J.D. Vance. It is very good that J.D. Vance hold this speech at the Munich Security Conference, a conference financed by Microsoft and Open Society Network. It is very good because it aimed for their heart. This is why when he talked first about the terrorist attacks, he got lots of applause. And then when he talked about the annulled elections and about how the EU bureaucrats not going in the right path, very few applauded. So what I'm saying to you is that we will have big fight for our identity, for our culture. Soros won't give up. If Soros will die, Alexander Soros, who is supporting some governments, including the government in Republic of Moldova, will come. It's a battle of living or dying for them.
Why is there no such voices in Europe? Why is it so fractured here? Like in the US, at least now there's unity. Everyone's behind Trump and his cabinet. We don't have the same personality here in Europe yet. We have Meloni making a big difference, Orban, people like yourself, Mateos, the list goes on, but it still doesn't seem united.
It isn't united. First of all, because in America you have one nation, one state. We are 27 states. Second, because there wasn't any real need of creating a unique European voice and unique European resistance until recent years. And thirdly, because national interests. It's hard to have a united Europe or a united conservative movement. I will be unity guy. I hear about some quarrels about Romanian, Hungarian territorial issues, for example. But this happened 1,000 years ago. Now we are in 2025 and fighting the good fight against Ursula von der Leyen. And we must unite with Hungarians, with Polish, with Italians for a free Europe. Not Radio Free Europe, which was founded by Soros in these years and by USAID, globalist democrats in the States.
And can you tell me more with what's the plan with Make Europe Great Again? It seems to be getting a lot of traction, a lot of people rallying around it even outside of Europe. What's the next step for you guys?
The next step is to spread the word and make this grassroots movement, put it in the parliaments, put it where it counts, to have parties that we support across Europe and to win the elections. We will have foundation, European level foundation, and the first member, the first honorary member, I want Elon Musk to have this honor, and we want to spread the fire that is in our hearts in every parliament, in every of the 27 countries in EU, and then at the end take the power from the hands of Soros and globalists.
And The last thing I want to go into is the fight you're having here in Romania. I want to go back to what we started with, the cancelled elections. We've discussed this in our interview in December. We've discussed this with my team in Brussels. We did another interview there during the mega event. It feels like it's a fight between EU control and sovereignty in a way.
Yes.
We know that they've cancelled an election. That's pretty clear. We also see, and you said it earlier in the interview, that what they're trying to do now is frame you, frame Calin, create some sort of narrative to try to take you out of the next election. That's the only way for them to win.
Yeah.
Because you've got the support. So the media as well is very centralized, very biased, very controlled. Even one of the outlets, one of the main ones, isn't it owned or partnered with CNN? I saw like a CNN logo on one of them.
Of course, my decision as a president of our is not to go, and none of our members to participate in their shows, because I was going to their show and telling I totally support Călin Georgescu, and they were quoting quarrels between George and Georgescu. This is the kind of propaganda they are making, and for now, in February, for example, we decided not to go to.
So you said that you fully support him, and their heading was there's quarrels between you and Georgescu.
Yeah.
But Romanians, do they still believe these outlets? Aren't they dying like in the US?
The majority of the Romanians are reorientating themselves towards realitatea, which shows the reality. And these globalist CNN are less and less watched.
And how's X doing here in Romania? It's growing as well?
No, we weren't that big fans of Twitter. This is why we don't have many accounts. I'm the most popular politician in Romania, so my biggest fan base is 1.5 million on Facebook.
On Facebook.
And 1,200,000 on TikTok. So Facebook and
TikTok is really big here.
Yes, but now I'm promoting, and this interview will be also on my X, because I'm working on X for the international scene.
It made such a big difference in the US, the growth of X. It made such a fundamental difference to free speech and just the consumption of information, just consuming it directly from the source, consuming it directly from citizen journalists.
X is very popular in Germany, X is very popular in Poland. This is why Elon tweeting "Make Europe Great Again" scared the bureaucrats in Brussels, who wanted to ban our event, not
they wanted to ban the event you had?
Yes, not to happen inside the European Parliament. They are very scared. Elon buying X, former Twitter, made the biggest difference for the American elections. And now they are scared that the same thing is happening also in Europe, and they are losing power. This is why I told you the first member card of the Mega Foundation will be given to Elon Musk. And this is why I believe we have the better chance of winning in the next 1, 2, 3 years' time.
And so going back to Romania, what's your steps here? So we saw the campaign manager of Georgescu, his house was raided 3 days ago, just before I landed. The house that I interviewed Mr. Georgescu in was raided a couple of weeks ago as well, his friend's house, which is like the only safe spot he finds.
Yes.
You've been targeted as well very heavily. So you're fighting that establishment outside the global watch. So the world doesn't know about what's happening right now in Romania. What's your plan to fight this?
My plan, I'm going straight away from this interview to Munich, to London, to Arch Forum, at the Conservative meeting, and at CPAC. We need international attention. Unfortunately, besides you, Jackson Hinkle, little bit of...
Sean Ryan.
Yes, we didn't have media coverage, and Washington Times was also helpful. But all the mainstream media is controlled by the part of the globalist agenda. So we are trying to get some international protection. We are the main opposition party here, and we are preparing for government. Romania is a civilized country, and nothing will happen. We are trying to control through the system of checks and balances what will happen. From Monday until I come back the next Monday from this international tour, we will have the signatures ready necessary for calling to be a candidate again in May's election.
By Monday?
Yes, in 1 week we will have the signatures.
And I think if they ban him from running again, that will be the spark that lights up people in Romania. That will be it. I just think that I don't think people could take more of this.
I don't believe that they will ban him again. We see the system's reaction to J.D. Vance's speech. We have connections at the international level, and many international institutions and leaders will step down to prevent such a ban.
Okay. And your message to the rest of the world, you've kind of hinted at it already, but what would you tell the average listener right now in the US on why what's happening in Romania matters to Europe and the world and the US?
It's important to have a friend and ally in Europe. So if we are losing in Romania, the globalists will create an enemy out of EU opposed to the American democracy. So we must fight together, and we must be together united. If somebody spoke about the Chinese and about the Russians and about other international global players, all they are interested in is a Europe that is opposing the United States. We are in favor of keeping our friendship and alliance.
And I do want to end it with two quotes. One is by Elon that said, "How can a judge cancel an election and not be considered a dictator?"
Correct.
And then Thierry Breton on the other side saying, "What was done in Romania may be needed in Germany."
They won't push it in Germany because we have it in February, next week actually. And in 18th May, the presidential elections in Poland, they won't push for this because they will still govern in Germany. I'm closely watching the political scenes in all the 27 states of the European Union, and I can say they are now in a position in which they are waiting to see what will happen for the next 2-3 months. They won't act.
And the reason I read the quote as well is to say to the world that what's happening in Romania is like an experiment, and if it works, it's a dangerous precedent for the rest of the world.
We are firing polygon right now.
George, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.